He leans over the counter like we are sharing a secret and says, very softly, "You should not have brought that back here." The words hit me like a hand on the throat. I do not answer fast enough. I feel my face do something guilty on its own, like my skin remembers a crime my brain never agreed to. The man is in a brown vest with a name tag that reads Steve. His eyes do not leave my hands. I am holding a library card between two fingers, the kind that should be dead plastic and nothing else. It is my card. My name is printed on it. It has my signature on the back, the one I wrote years ago with a pen that ran out halfway through. Steve looks at the card the way you look at a knife you found in a sink. I say, "I just need paint." Steve does not blink. He says, "You used it already." Behind him, the hardware store is too bright, too clean, full of straight aisles and sensible products. Ceiling fans push cool air down in steady pulses. Somewhere toward the back, a paint mixer begins to spin, the metal can clamped inside it shaking as the machine builds speed. The mixer makes a sound that is almost a voice. It is not words, not clearly, but it has the shape of words. It has pauses where consonants should be. It has a rising and falling pitch that feels like emphasis. It makes my jaw want to move along with it, like my mouth is trying to speak back. I come here after work because the living room walls in my house are stained from an old leak. I want to cover it. I want a clean surface. I want to stop looking at the brown water shadow that blooms behind my couch like something pressed from the other side. The leak is fixed. The stain remains. I am tired of it. Steve keeps staring at the card, and now that he has said it, I remember. Last week, on my lunch break, I walked into the library because the air conditioning was better than my car. I wandered without purpose until I found myself in front of a door that said staff only. I do not go through doors like that. I am not bold. I am not that kind of person. But the door was slightly open. From the gap, I heard a sound that reminded me of a paint mixer. A heavy spinning churn, a rhythmic tremor, like something rotating that should not. I stood there too long. Someone behind me cleared their throat. I turned, and it was a librarian I had never seen before. She had gray hair pulled tight, and she watched me like I was about to steal something. "Can I help you?" she asked. I said no, sorry, and I stepped away. My hand brushed my wallet in my pocket, and I felt my library card. Then, without thinking, I took it out and held it up like a badge. The librarian looked at it. Her face changed. Not anger, not surprise, recognition. "Oh," he said. "Oh." That single word makes my stomach drop even now. She moved aside, and she opened the staff door fully, like she was letting me back into somewhere I belonged. I did not go in. I laughed in a small way and said, "No, I'm just browsing." I put the card away and left. I told myself it was nothing. A mistaken identity thing. A weird moment. But that night, I woke up at 3 in the morning with the sound in my head again, that rotating voice, and I realized I could still feel the librarian looking at me. Now Steve is looking at me the same way. I say, "I do not know what you mean." Steve reaches out and taps the card with one fingertip. He does not touch my skin. He treats the plastic like it might stain him. He says, "That is not for this aisle." I glance past him. The paint department is a wide open area with tall shelves of samples and rows of cans arranged by sheen and base. A machine sits against the wall, bolted to the floor, with a metal arm that clamps cans and shakes them until the pigments surrender. The mixer is not running right now. The silence where it was makes me uneasy. I say, "It is just a library card." Steve smiles a little, like I said something funny in the wrong place. He says, "People keep saying that." Behind him, a young couple argues quietly over paint chips. A child drags a plastic basket behind him, the sound of it skittering over the polished concrete. A radio somewhere plays a soft rock station that never offends anyone. Everything is normal, except for Steve, except for the card, except for the way my heartbeat feels timed, like it is waiting for a cue. Steve says, "What are you trying to cover?" It is not a question about paint. My throat dries out. I look down at my hands. The card is warm, like it has been in sunlight, but it has been in my pocket all day. I say, "A water stain." Steve nods. He says, "Those come back if you do not seal them." Then he says, "Those come back anyway." He turns, and without telling me to follow, he walks toward the mixer station. I follow because I do not want to be left alone with the idea that he knows me. I do not want to stand at the counter and feel the card in my hand like evidence. As I walk, I notice a display near the end cap. It is a stack of small white objects, cheap and simple, like kitchen timers. A sign above them reads "Sale." The timers are shaped like eggs with a single dial, but there are no numbers on the dial. There are only short black marks like ticks on a clock face, and one long red mark that stands out like a cut. I pick one up without thinking. It is a light. It fits in my palm like it belongs there. There is a small sticker on the bottom with a barcode, and beneath the barcode, printed in tiny letters, is my name. My stomach flips. I look at the stack. I pick up another one. It has my name too. Every timer in the stack has my name. I set it down like it burns. Steve is at the mixer now, standing beside a metal rack of cans. He has already chosen a gallon and set it on the counter. "What color?" he asks. I stare at him. I should leave. I should drop the card and walk out, but my eyes keep drifting to the timer display, and the red mark feels like it is watching me. I say, "Something neutral." Steve nods like he expected that. He begins to tint the paint, pumping pigment into the can with practiced movements. As he works, he says, "You know how this sounds, right?" I say, "What?" Steve gestures at the mixer. He says, "The machine." People joke. They say it sounds like it is talking. I do not answer. Steve says, "It does not talk to everyone." He puts the lid on the can and clamps it into the mixer. He closes the safety gate, and then he presses the start button. The machine lurches into motion. The can begins to shake violently, and the sound fills the paint department, a thick mechanical roar threaded with something else. A pattern, a cadence, a voice trying to form itself out of vibration. I feel it in my teeth. Steve watches my face instead of the machine. The mixer sound changes. It tightens silence, like it is focusing, and then inside the roar, I hear it. Not clearly, not like a person speaking, but like a person trapped behind a wall, tapping out syllables with a fist. My name. It is not a whisper. It is not a shout. It is a shaping of noise around my name, like the machine has practiced it. My skin breaks into goose flesh. I look around. Nobody else reacts. The couple keeps arguing. The child keeps dragging the basket. A cashier laughs at something up front. Steve says, "There it is." I say, "Stop it." Steve does not move. The mixer continues. The voice inside it keeps working, like it is trying to get the rest of the sentence out. My name again, and then a sound like a breath, and then something that could be a word. Return. Or maybe it is just my brain grabbing at the noise. I squeeze the library card until the edges bite my fingers. The mixer slows and stops. The sudden silence feels wrong, like when a generator cuts out and you realize how loud it was. Steve opens the gate and lifts the can out. He sets it on the counter with care. He says, "You hear it now." I say, "I need to go." Steve reaches for my card. I pull my hand back. Steve holds his palm open, patient, like he has done this before. He says, "It is not yours anymore." My mouth goes numb. I say, "It has my name." Steve says, "So do the timers." I turn my head toward the end cap again. The egg-shaped timers sit in their stack like a nest of identical things. The red mark on the dial seems brighter now. Steve says, "Pick one." I say, "No." Steve says, "You already did. You just do not remember." I feel a cold pressure behind my eyes, the beginning of a headache that is not physical, more like a thought trying to force its way in. I see, for a flicker of a moment, my own hand reaching for one of those timers. I see myself turning the dial until the red mark lines up with something. I do not know when I did it. I do not know why, but the image lands in me like a memory. I look down at my pocket, and I already know what I will find. My fingers move without permission. I reach into my jacket pocket, the one I never use, and I pull out a timer. It is the same white egg shape. It is smooth and cheap and clean. It has no brand name. On the bottom, beneath the barcode, is my name. My hand shakes. I set it on the counter. Steve nods like a teacher watching a student finally understand. The dial on the timer is not pointing at the red mark. It is one tick away. The timer is counting down, not with numbers, not with sound, with position, with the slow, steady movement of the dial toward the red mark. I stare at it, trying to see it move. It is too subtle. It might not be moving at all, but my pulse says it is. Steve says, "It does not matter if you watch it. It still goes." I swallow. I say, "What happens when it hits?" Steve looks at the paint can, then at my card, then back to the timer. He says, "You check out." The phrase is normal. It belongs in a store, but it lands wrong. I say, "Check out like pay." Steve says, "Check out like you are done." My breath comes shallow. I look around again, searching for someone normal to anchor to. A couple, a child, any employee that is not Steve, but the air feels thin, like the whole department is holding still around me. Steve says, "You have been using that card in places it should not work." I do not answer. Steve says it opened the staff door at the library. Did it not? I flinch. Steve says it will open other doors too. I say, "I did not open anything." Steve tilts his head. He says, "That is what you keep saying." The mixer behind him clicks softly, like it is settling. For a second, I think it is going to start on its own. I grip the edge of the counter. Steve says, "When you use the card, you take something out." I say, "A book." Steve smiles without humor. He says, "Not always." My mind races back through the last month, searching for anything missing, anything I took and forgot. Any moment I walked into a room and felt a strange relief, like something heavy had been removed from me. There are gaps, small ones, moments that feel smoothed over. A Tuesday I cannot picture. A phone call I know happened because I see the entry on my call log, but I cannot remember the conversation. A bruise on my forearm that I do not know how I got. Steve says the store takes returns. I stare at him. Steve says, "You bring it back. You get more time." My eyes lock on the timer again. One tick away. I do not know how long a tick is. A minute, an hour, a day. It feels like it could be any of them. I say, "Bring what back." Steve looks past me, toward the entrance, as if he expects someone else to walk in. Then he says, "The thing you checked out." The mixer makes a small groan, like metal shifting. In that groan, I hear a fragment of speech again. Not my name this time. A word that makes my stomach drop because it is too specific to be random noise. Basement. I do not have a basement. Not in my house. But the library does. I remember, very suddenly, the smell that came from the staff door gap. Not paper and dust like I told myself. Wet cement. Fresh paint. Something sour underneath. Steve reaches under the counter and pulls out a small paper bag. He slides it toward me. It is heavy. It makes a soft clink. I look inside. There is a set of keys. Old keys, brass, worn smooth. A tag is attached with a piece of twine. On the tag, written in neat block letters, is a call number like you would see on a library book spine. And beneath that, my name again. My fingers go cold. I do not touch the keys. Steve says, "You left those last time." I whisper, "Last time." Steve says, "You came in with paint on your hands." I look down at my palms. They are clean, but for a second, I see them the way Steve says, smeared with a color that is not on any sample card. A gray that looks like skin under fluorescent lights. The timer dial twitches. It moves a fraction. It is real. I make a sound that is almost a laugh and almost a sob. I say, "I do not understand." Steve says, "You do not have to. You just have to decide what you are willing to return." My mouth tastes metallic. I look at the paint can at the neutral color I asked for. Cover it. Seal it. Make it look clean. I think of the water stain at home, the brown bloom that never quite looks like water anymore. The way it seems darker some mornings, like something pressed its face there overnight. I think of the staff door at the library. I think of the keys. I think of the timer. One takeaway. I clutch my library card so hard the plastic bends slightly. The card should not bend. Steve watches me with mild curiosity, like he is waiting for a customer to choose between two sheens. I say, if I return it, I get more time. Steve says, you get what you had. I whisper what I had. The mixer clicks again. This time the sound is unmistakable. A voice made of machinery, rounding out syllables with effort. It says in the same broken cadence like a tape played through a fan. Bring it back. The timer dial shifts again. It is on the red mark now. Nothing happens. For half a second, there is only the bright store, the smell of tint and lumber, the distant radio. Then every fluorescent light above the paint aisle flickers once, in perfect unison, like a blink. When they come back, Steve is no longer smiling. He looks frightened. He looks at my hands. He says, you did not check it in. The paint mixer starts by itself. The can inside it is not the one Steve just mixed. It is a can I have never seen before, already clamped in, already spinning. And the voice inside the roar is not trying to say my name now. It is counting. I do not know what it is counting down to, but I hear the first number clearly, and it makes me look at the tire in my pocket like it might have started over without asking me. I hear the mixer say, 1. And then, behind the counter, a door I did not notice before unlocks with a soft metallic click, like the library's staff door opening for me. Steve steps back from it, shaking his head. He whispers, do not go through. The door swings inward anyway. Cold air spills out, carrying the smell of wet cement and fresh paint, and something sour underneath. My library card in my hand turns warm again, like it is being read. I stand there, unable to move, as the mixer voice starts to say the next number, slower, closer, like it is coming from inside my chest. The open door waits. The timer in my pocket makes no sound, but I can feel the dial moving again, against my thigh, like a second heartbeat. And in the bright normal hardware store, I realize everyone else has stopped talking, stopped walking, stopped breathing, as if the whole building is listening for what I do next. My hand lifts the library card toward the darkness without me deciding to. Steve mouths my name like a warning. The mixer says, Sri. I take one step toward the door, and the smell hits me so hard my eyes water, and I see, just past the threshold, a concrete stairwell going down. The walls painted the same neutral color I chose, still wet, reflecting the light like skin. Something down there shifts, and the wet paint catches it like a silhouette. The mixer voice begins to form the next number, and I finally remember what I checked out. I remember it wanting to come home with me. I remember promising I would bring it back. My lungs lock, the library card slips in my sweaty fingers, and the dark stairwell seems to lean closer, waiting for me to swipe it. The mixer says, 4, and from below, something answers in a voice that sounds exactly like mine. It says, I am ready to return. My hand raises the card toward the air like it is a reader. The door frame hums. The timer presses harder against my pocket, like it is pushing itself toward 0, and the hardware store, bright and ordinary, feels like it is miles away already. The mixer says, 5. The card meets the threshold, and the invisible scanner begins to beep. Not fast, not slow, like a heartbeat learning my rhythm, and the beep is followed by a sound from downstairs that I cannot mistake for anything else. A paint can opening, a wet brush dragged across concrete, and my own voice again, closer now, saying, you should not have brought that back here. The beeping speeds up, and the stairwell light flickers like it is about to go out, and I realize I am still holding the neutral paint I came to buy, thick and heavy in my other hand, like an offering. The mixer starts to say, 6. The door begins to pull me in. I do not know if I am checking something out, or checking myself in, and the last thing I hear before the fluorescent lights finally die is Steve whispering, too late, you were supposed to return the right one. The darkness below inhales, and my library card beeps approval. Then the countdown voice smiles its way into the next number, 7, and the stairwell takes my foot.